Hello everybody and welcome to this tutorial. Today I will show you how to circumvent that problem where when the router locks and is unable to receive any requests for PIN authentication. Now there are two scenarios that can happen here. One of them is that a router locks out for a certain period of time, let's say for 5 minutes, an hour, or a day, or you have routers which, after too many unsuccessful attempts at PIN authentication, just disable WPS. That can be very problematic. That is probably the worst part of it all, because you don't really have any legit ways of resetting the router remotely. There are some tools out there that claim that can do this. I think MDK3, you can use it to effectively reset router lockouts remotely. However, that only works on really old routers, and even I have basically surfed through the forums and searched again just to be certain of this. It's not very likely to work on any of the newer routers. But I mean, you can just think of it in a logical fashion. If the router somewhere out there locks you out and you are unable to attempt any more PIN authentication method, any PIN authentication per a unit of time, you can actually DOS it so nobody else is able to connect to it. And then, more likely than not, the owner of the router or whoever is in control of the router will reset it in order to see if that will fix it. Once the router is reset, the pin lockout will disappear and you will be able to try it again. I will show you how to DOS routers a bit later on, wireless routers especially, and some other things as well. But for the time being, I have a simpler solution for you. The solution that is generally applied is that you limit reaver to attempt a certain amount of pins in a certain amount of time. So let's say 2 pins in 60 seconds or 5 pins in 60 seconds or something like that. You can even tell it just do one after another, but that's bound to fail. Without further ado, let's just go ahead and try it and see will it actually work. But before we do, I have made a small script for myself here to enable monitor mode on my wireless card. You can have a look at it and copy it if you like, but it's just a list of commands that I have used before. Let's go less monitor.sh. And this is my script. Basically, it's a bash script, and I have 4 commands in it. It's ifconfig vlp2s0 down to bring my wireless interface down, and then iwconfig vlp2s0 to enable the monitor mode on it, bring it back up, and I want it to report back to me and tell me that and confirm that the monitor mode is actually running. So let's just go ahead and do that. Monitor.sh. Excellent. So you see it says here mode monitor, and I know that probably my network manager is going to interfere with this, so I'm just going to do service network manager stop. So that's gone. And go ahead, clear the screen. Now what I need to do is, well, I can either do wash -i vlp2s0 and see if that will work. No, it will not. Why? Let's just go ahead and see. I have fig. It's not up for some strange reason. Okay, let's just see if I can do that again. And I'm gonna clear the screen. Do wash-i vlp2s0, press enter. There we go. Probably the interface went down with the network manager for some strange reason, but doesn't really matter now. Anyway, wash-i, as I said before, it tells you which wireless access points in the neighborhood are vulnerable. We have this one, so I'm just gonna cancel it here and close it. You can also check the signal. I've showed you how to do that in the previous tutorial, but let's just go ahead and try to do this in order and attempt to bypass this limiting rate of VPS pin authentication. So reaver-i vlp2s0, which is my wireless interface, space -b for the BSS ID here, let's just go ahead and copy it, paste it here. And what I need next is actually recursive attempts -r. Here I can specify the amount of tries. So let's say I want to have 2 tries per 60 seconds. Fairly simple, no problems there. Just by adding this command here, you can bypass pretty much the lockout problems. But if you get locked out with this, try decreasing the amount of tries or increasing the amount of time. Eventually it has to work, because every router out there has a limitation on these things. You can't just say, I mean, they have to basically say, if you have that many tries in that amount of time, then lockout. It's an if statement basically. If that, act like this. If not, act like this. They have to have a limit here. They can't just say, they cannot put infinite values here. They have to say basically, if you get that many tries in that amount of time, lockout. And as long as you can be above that, the router will not lock out. It will work. It will work well for you. If you're wondering how to get the individual lockout timers for routers, well, there is no simple answer for this. You gotta go on the net and search. Sometimes you'll find it, sometimes you won't. It depends. People have reverse engineered some of the firmware on the routers and have figured these things out, but not on all of them. However, the foolproof method is just simply to try a couple of times, see if it works, see when it works, when you do not get it, when you don't get the error message, and you're good to go. After that, you can just leave your computer running and it's bound to break it. However, the problem here is that this will increase the amount of time required to crack the pin exponentially. It might take you up to 3 weeks to break it. I think that was the longest, but still, if you just think about it, 3 weeks is not a huge amount of time. It is still within the realm of possible, especially if you are trying to pen test something somewhere, or if you are or if you have access to a position where you can actually transmit this sort of signal in order to attempt the authentication via WPS or something of a kind. However, there is a downside to it. I mean, especially if you are functioning on a limited timetable, and if you don't have that much time, it can be very problematic. There are some other methods which I'm going to show to you in a moment, which can bypass restore previous session. Nah, I don't want to restore the previous session. Let's just go with this one, because I have reset my router in order to actually unlock it, as I did lock it previously, and that was a problem. So I have, while this is running, let's just, oops, I didn't specify the channel. You don't actually need to specify the channel, but if you want it to work, if you want to increase the speed of it, you definitely should. So it's channel 6. Excellent. Press enter. No, don't restore nothing. Just go ahead, associate with it, and attempt these pin combinations. Anyway, you will see that nothing is really happening, because I've told it 2 attempts every 60 seconds, and it's going to take a while before you see anything here. Meanwhile, let's just go over to Kali Linux. I have downloaded a script from the net here. Let's just zoom it in. So this script will work for D-Link routers. Now, there are various scripts on the net that will help you figure out what the pin is before you even begin the pin authentication. Now, here's the catch. Every router out there needs to have an algorithm with which it can generate these pins. Since people have reverse engineered these functions which generate pins, you can predict what pins which routers will have. For example, D-Link routers generate their pins based upon their MAC addresses, which anybody can see. So they generate their pins based on the first part of the MAC addresses, which is terrible. For example, this script does the reverses the process. Actually, it duplicates the process. You just feed it the MAC address, and that's it. Here, let me just show it to you. The script, you can actually see it on the browser in behind, but I'm just gonna nano pin Gen pi. Excellent. So I have some coloring options here, and let's just zoom it in one more time so you can see it better. So here is the code, and you don't need to understand the code to the fullest of extents. If you wish, you can explore it a bit further. The code is fairly simple. It is written in Python, which is a programming language. All it does is takes the MAC address, splits it in two, uses that to feed the function, and then that function, based upon the variables that were passed to it, can generate the default pin of the router. That can be very helpful, especially for D-Link routers. The first pin you try, you can try the default pin for a specific router, because every router out there that has VPS enabled also has a default pin, which is enabled by default, and it is not likely that people will change this. Therefore, you are able to do this. Basically, pingen pi. I've just downloaded this from the internet. Here is the website that I have downloaded it from. You can just type in VPS algorithm reversed for D-Link routers, but I'm reluctant to give you a link, primarily because it's not very likely that you will be using the specific D-Link router that I am using to demonstrate here. You'll probably have some other router with which you will want to try this, and therefore it is absolutely best that you just use the model of the router that you have or that you wish to pen test, and then search the VPS algorithm for that particular router or something equivalent to that. You won't find the VPS algorithm always, but it's worth a shot. Why not? Just type into your favorite search engine VPS algorithm 4 and then the model number, or just the name of the brand of the router, like TP-Link or Huawei or something of a kind. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, I have pingen.py here, and if I just pass in the MAC address of any of these, it doesn't matter. Just in case, I'm gonna stick to the one that belongs to me. So I wouldn't reveal any information here, not that anybody would be able to make any use of it. I mean, you're too far away anyway. So just paste the MAC address here and feed that MAC address to this script. Press enter, and you will get the default pin. Now, obviously, this is not the default pin of my router, because I don't have a D-Link router, but for TP-Link for D-Link routers, it's gonna work. It's gonna give you default pins, and you will be able to authenticate from the first try, which is very nice. It saves you a ton load of time. These things are router specific, and you do need to search the net. The internet is your best friend to find the VPS algorithm functions that generate it, basically. This is going very slow. I have not passed at the the VV option. Excellent. So you see, you can actually change the values here in the command of the reaver, and even though you've changed the arguments here, it will still tell you what you want to restore from the previous session with the updated arguments. And here we go. I have triggered the AP rate limiting. It says waiting 60 seconds before rechecking. That can be problematic, as this doesn't seem to work. We need to increase this to 4 or 5 or something like this, but sorry, not this. We need to decrease this or leave it the same, but increase the amount of time. I have learned that on my particular router, a setting of 300 seconds will do, and if you do, I don't know, 2 tries per 300 seconds or something of a kind, it's not gonna lock out. But I have given a very small value here, and that's why we have faced a lockout here. However, if you play around with these values, you will find that after a while you won't get any lockouts of whatsoever if you set this number, the timer, up higher a little bit. Anyway, I will continue on this. I will continue with this wireless cracking process in the follow-up tutorial, as there are a few more things to cover here. But don't be discouraged if you fail at first. If you get these error messages or something like that, just play around with the timers, and eventually you will get the hang of it. Eventually you will no longer get AP rate limiting or anything of a kind. Now in the follow-up tutorial, what I'm going to do is show you the authentication methods and how you can basically shut down all connections to that router in order to force the user to reset the router or something of a kind, because there is no way that they can detect you, or it's highly unlikely that they will detect you, that they will find your physical location, that is, while you're performing a DOS attack, especially if you change the MAC address. If you're doing this sort of thing, please remember to always change the MAC address. So there's no way that it can be traced back to you in a physical sense, but you can't be located anyway. You can be, I suppose, through some complex methods, your physical location could be discovered with a 4-meter discrepancy. So if you're in a bar or something like that, if there are 5 people using a laptop or a pad or something like that, there's just no way. There's too many people to go over, and it's, I mean, they would have to use directional antennas, and yeah, it would basically be a manhunt or something of a kind. But you are not going to get that far, primarily because you will always have a permission to do these sort of things. Anyway, I bid you farewell till the next tutorial, where we shall be dealing with the DOS attacks of wireless and the forced restart of these routers in order, again, to avoid this error detected AP rate limiting. Anyway, I bid you farewell, and I hope to see you then.